Hello, everyone. Once again, I want to welcome you to the Hurd Auditorium at the Erie County Public Library for another great session of Poetry Live, where we get to listen to all sorts of fantastic poets from Erie's community and hear them read their own poems. Sometimes they read some poems that really move them. Either way, you've probably seen it before, and it's going to be just as great this time. So, welcome. Again, I want to thank Erie County Public Library just for letting us do this here. It's great that, especially in this time, to have a place where people can gather live and do stuff responsibly, of course. Like always, I have to remind people that we have to wear masks except for when we're performing, and to keep 6-foot distance. Even on stage, we're doing that. So, just as a reminder, and just as another reminder, this will be recorded and put online. So. If you're going to read, just be aware of that. Know that people will be watching this. We get pretty, not to toot my own horn, but we get some pretty good numbers online, so this will be seen. And afterwards, there will be an interview that will be posted, not on our live stream, but will be posted on the YouTube video in about a week or a little bit more. The last announcement I have for the evening is that on November 17th, there will be a poetry symposium about publishing, and that will be, that'll be next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. It'll just be on the Facebook page for Erie County Public Library. You can register for that on our website, or you can just show up day of, and there'll be a link, and you can just watch. So we have some people from all over Pennsylvania, and we have a poet who's gonna speak about the experience being a publisher, and then we have 2 publishers who are gonna talk about their experience as publishers, but also have tips for poets that want to get published. So that'll be really exciting. I hope you can all make it to that. If not, it'll be posted online, so you'll get to see it either way. Well, like usual, I'll start. The host usually starts and reads a couple poems. Basically, the rules for the reading is that everybody will read 2 poems, 3 if they're all very short, and then sit down, and then somebody will take their place until we're all done. Anybody who is in the audience can come up afterwards if they want to read as well. I'm going to read 2 poems tonight. One is very, very new. I just wrote it on the 7th, and the other one is very old. So we'll see how that goes. This one was actually the title was taken from a headline I saw on CNN, and the title was so weird that I could not write something about it. And it's Giant Eagle Seen in the Streets of Philadelphia Because America. Headline on CNN, 11/7/2020. Because America, giant eagle seen in the streets of Philadelphia, humans under talon, not in fear, but in worship, arms raised to those brown feathers to collect the light that sheds between barbs. Later, after the eagle feasts on their livers, songs will spring out of them, thankful prayers rising over the towers and blue glass windows to the stars, not yet out, but waiting for the eagle to finally rest. Thank you. And then I wrote that one. I was like, if I'm going to read that, I might as well read something else America adjacent. So this one's called July 4th. On the bus again, and fireworks burst at all points across Ohio. Beside me, a man smiles, stretches to switch off the overhead light. His tie is burgundy and diamond. Dark patched, the red reflects double on the glass. There's something about rose dust I have no memory of, except a story of a young girl hit by phosphorus, the smell of body burnt red, and scream fused in patches on a yellow wool blanket. As a child, I cried, tonight is simply too hot. I close my book, tuck away my glasses. The man shifts for comfort, his thigh rubbing soft against mine. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Excited to be here today. My name is Mabel Howard, and I've been inspired to write a lot of poetry this week. So the week's not over, so I'm excited to know how it may end. So the first poem that I'm going to read, it's called The Great Escape. Who am I to tell you? Let me start over. Okay. The Great Escape. Who am I to tell someone not to cry? Internally, not always seen with the human eye, but eventually expressed with the teardrops when the pain inside overflows. It's like a tilting teapot without a handle, no control, knowing that when the water lands, it will be you or another soul. Burning from the outside in, we are all supposed to be born with thick skin. Layers of protection, but the pain keeps getting in. Is it haunting us or the people we trust? Pain keeps making it in and may take decades to find its origin. But even then, we must be prepared to play the game of truth or dare. I dare you to let the pain escape. Thank you. And I have two very short ones to follow. Okay. The first one is You Make Me Smile. The evidence of your presence is on my mind, beginning with the rising of the corners of my lips. Thank you. And the final one for today is called The Playground. When I looked into your eyes, I got lost in a place that I never wanted to leave. Thank you.
Well, maybe I'll follow that. I'm Chuck Joy, and I have three things to do here. The first one, the reason I came up after Mabel was because one of them has to do with short form, but not the first one. The first thing I want to address today is we have often asked the question here in Erie, can lyrics be poetry? And I think in general, the answer to that is usually a resounding yes. I have my reservations, but I respect everybody's opinion. And so when I learned that today is Neil Young's birthday, I thought, well, can lyrics be poetry? Let's find out. One of the accomplishments of Neil Young for me is that he's maintained a creative and contributing career all this time. He continues to produce meaningful music. And so I've chosen a little bit of a lyric from a song from an album called Colorado that was released last year, 2019. And here it comes. The song is called Help Me Lose My Mind. Nothing bothers me because I'm so happy. Might look like it does, but that means nothing. I got a face that gets me in trouble. I got a voice that does its damage. But I'm rescued now, and this is all in my head. I gotta win somehow and lose this mind instead. It's always working on finding my weakness, how I was made to feel and can't forget. I try to make my way past this moment. Move along till I'm new again. I got my history they won't believe in. I gotta get somewhere. I gotta find a new television. Got to find a new display system to make the sky look like the earth is flattened. I gotta get someone to sort this out for me. Out for me. Help me lose my mind. Thank you. Now, short form. Mabel and others have been bringing short form. I like short form, and it occurred to me that a poet who specializes in short form is named Don Wentworth. And Don has been in Erie. He's performed here. Some of you maybe have seen him. And so I asked him if he could come up and join us, maybe even be a little bit of a feature. And then he pointed out to me there was a pandemic and COVID, and he's right. However, since he can't come at this time, I thought I would read a few of his. This is from one of his several books called With a Deepening Presence. And I'll just read a few of these short forms. They're very short. They go by real fast. So listen. 3 a.m. First, the house settling, then the heart. Don Wentworth. Lightning flash, how brief the seeing. I'm going to just read a few more. Above our pay grade, truth. Thank you, Don. Temple without walls, spring meadow. Thank you. So that was Don Wentworth. He wants to come up and visit. All right, and so finally, for the third component of this set, here's one of my own. This poem is from Current Events. It's called Loyalty. Hello, my name is Georgia. I think you're a traitor. We were all at our laptops. The occasion, a virtual visit. Buck Strongbow, guest poet. He replied, "Thank you, Georgia. My loyalty is to the Constitution and to the office of its president. The current occupant clearly unable to even recognize the difference between himself and that office to which we have duly elected his replacement. His loyalty only to himself. And as for Mr. Trump, I have not now or ever or will ever pledge one hint of loyalty to that personification of selfishness and heedlessness. His status, since I first heard of him, as a tabloid celebrity. So no traitors here, Georgia, at least not me. Thank you for your question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Todd Paropasic, and I haven't been here for 2 weeks because I got married. So I'm not going to be reading any love poetry or even any, I was going to be reading, I did a series on or a bunch of stuff on chores and daily living. I'm going to be political for a day, I guess. I really don't like to. I try to keep it to the experts, but it's really hard not to be right now. This first one I wrote when I read an article comparing a certain side to the Gnostic Christian movement from the 3rd century. And so this is a poem called How Gnostic of You, an ode to my boy, Donnie T. Revered and reviled, I am the babe of an unborn child. Straight-tongued, I twist the words into an obscuring mist. Precious and mundane, I am the filth and I am the rain. Offbeat, I keep in line to follow the deaf and lead the blind. I'm so cold that I burn, and in utter stillness, watch me turn. My decision is righteous and fair that crushes the weak and pollutes the air. Where I sow salt, flowers bloom. When I kill men, they rise from the tomb. I have the heart of a stone, and in my mile-down bunker, I am never alone. When I eat, I never gain, and though I ache, I am never in pain. I am what I won't, and I will what I don't. I am them, and I am us. I am the collapse, and I am the truss. Prepared, I'm off the cuff, while bending to the breeze, I stand tough. You know, you say two things and they're diametrically opposed, and who knows what to believe. This is another real political one. It's newer, like within the past few weeks, and it's kind of about my own political journey, my personal beliefs in politics and where they have started and where they end up, and it's called Recovery. Hello, my name is Todd, and I'm a recovering libertarian. Once I believed that I held myself up by my own two legs, my glasses fogged, fingers grasping at the dregs of the idea that I am all that I'll ever need. But if I bleed, I can't fill my own pantry or stem the red tide with a sigh of self-assured relief. I am all that I think I need. But thoughts and prayers don't lead to anything except for dashed hopes and neglected malady. To find success in a vacuum is not to succeed, but to lead ghosts into graves that will not receive their tattered souls. It is to roll the dice, one chance, one night. Oh, but the numbers you hoped for didn't show. And the land of the free will say, tough luck, bucko. No, I am a recovering libertarian, and your life, and yours too, anything I live for belongs to all of you. To do for yourself is to shoot a bolt into the blue. It's to be an errant horseshoe. How does out of the pit count in hand grenades? How does one claw out of the rubble of the collective mess we've made? Sometimes the raid is necessary, a spade commissioned by the local commissary to dig up the filth of prior generations. And in my idea of a nation, those who were kept in the dirt are who we feed first. A people that don't take care of their own are doomed to be driven over by the hearse. All right? And then thank you. I got one short one-liner. I used to do weird abstract illustrations and then infuse poetry in them, usually one or two lines. And so this is one of the first ones I did. Just remember, life is hell. I don't care. I am cool, and so can you. Thank you.
I would say this is the political poetry portion of the program, but we know better by now after the last two or three poets. Once again, I forgot my glasses. Hang on. Here we are. I don't memorize my stuff. I should, but I don't. All righty. Tonight is the continuing saga during this thing of my jobs, my careers. And I've reached the point where I'm going to tell you about these two jobs that I had as a staff organizer for the two different unions. The first one was a healthcare workers union called 1199, and I just took the job because, you know, hey, it was my first real chance. They wanted me as an organizer to organize hospital workers, and I thought, great, you know. But when I got there and I learned what they really wanted was me to keep feeding them dues payers, well, they just sucked the money up, and they didn't even hold union meetings. in the 90 days that I worked for them, they had no union meetings, and he had a contract he would negotiate. He didn't even have a negotiating committee. So anyhow, it was a disappointment, but that happens sometimes. So this job only lasted 90 days, but it still taught me a lesson. So many times, dedicated guys and gals become complacent in their struggles for a cause. Those noble goals they sought for all their pals are replaced by careers and mortgages. Their re-election to office is the common goal now, and all the loyal followers dutifully agree. Better you than the next guy milking this cow, 'cause they won't share the treasury with thee. The staff is expected to act like little flunkies, doing anything the union bosses ask of them, with a total disregard for union democracy. Your dues are all they're really interested in. I've kicked bums like these out of office. Their union loyalty was way too fake. They hadn't held one union meeting in months. After 90 days, I had all I could take. And that was $11.99. And off I went. And the next stop was another career opportunity in the union field. This time was for the United Electrical Workers. And they're the union out that is at WebTech, old GE. And I enjoyed that union's ability, but there still was a problem with the staff. They had two different trains of thought going. One was to be a rank-and-file driven union, the other was to be a staff-driven union. And the conflict came to a head when I was organizing here in Erie what they call the Plastic Workers Organizing Committee, or a PWOC, as I'll call it in the poem. So you'll hear me mention the PWOC and the staffers who all thought they could do a better job. But that was my experience, and that lasted for 3 years, and then I had to resign from that position and move on to another job. So here it goes, the staff position with the United Electrical Workers. When the UE hired me, I was a proud peacock. The members run their, when the UE hired me, I was a proud peacock. The members run this union is their mantra. They let me build my PWOC the old-fashioned way, and we were acting like a union before we had to. We then had, man, I am having trouble reading tonight. Here we go. We then had 5 committees ready for action. Their members confident this is what they wanted to do. They started their campaigns for union recognition, and the no-hold-barred class struggle ensued. We published the Plastic Workers News reporting about conditions and their mutual fight. Eventually, we were reporting victories as well as struggles. Life for plastic workers was looking bright. I don't really know what happened to the UE. One day, my PWOC was invaded by staffers for goodness sake. They all said, I can do it faster than this guy. Their blitz strategy left nothing but losses in its wake. And that was my UE experience, and I resigned. Thank you for your time. See you next week. Oops.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Watts, and I'm very excited tonight. I've got 3 poems. The first one is called Chicago Landscape, and I wrote it when I was traveling on a bus through Chicago and going up to Milwaukee, and I just thought that the landscape was very interesting. It was the epitome of everywhere that I had grown up and then spent some time out in the country in Ohio. And so this is Chicago Landscape. Cities of industry in the heart of a nation, once forged the backbones of America, now sit like old workhorses who have been put out to pasture. They show their age in rust and crumbling infrastructure. Skinny skylines dot the maps. In between vast expanses of farm and field, stark juxtapositions of the organic and the industrial. This one I wrote because I was chastising myself that I haven't written a whole lot. So this one is Girl, Take Your Medicine. Have you forgotten what it feels like to dig ink into the skin of that old notebook, dragging the sadness out of you like heaving sobs from your chest? Now that the tears have dried up, so have the words. You bat me away and say, no one likes to listen to happy poems anyway. But I listen to you talk and you make poetry out of the winter sky. Or in frustration, you've nailed to the wall the hypocrisy of social media crusaders. If words were knives, you would be an assassin, a craft you mastered in high school hallways. Your forked 14-year-old tongue made boys not like you. If words were fabric, you would wear them like a coronation gown. If they were a disease, you would be infected with it. And some days, my girl, you have to remember to take your medicine. And this last one, I am super, super excited and honored to do. Mabel Howard, who said that she had been writing so much, is allowing me to take one of her poems and stand it up for you guys tonight. So I'm really, really excited. This one is called Her Passion. Better than any designer fashion, original, unique, attention-grabbing, pure, making it easy for her to lead small or large crowds. She is a visionary who chooses to guide philanthropists who live in this town down a path that will benefit a community in need, an audience she has been chosen to serve, and they are grateful for her because she listens to them, showing concern. Effortlessly, it's in her heart, easy like breathing. Mountain mover, her self-description, proven by daily works and ongoing accomplishments. Thank you.
You're amazing, Lindsay. Thank you so much. That was really good. Hello, guys. I'm Nisi. I'm working on a bio poem, so I'm gonna read 2 for you tonight. I'm working on this bio poem, not really finished with it, but okay. There are people that like me, probably. I don't know. Sometimes I can be rougher than the skin on my elbows. I have worn holes in the knees of pants, praying to false gods for undesirable things. My hair is long, it's short, straight, wavy, pretty much whatever I decide. My hair, she hears me, but she never cooperates with Euro standards. Sometimes I can't tell which one of us is more defined in that notion. My skin, it is smooth, but it's dark and, well, it's smoothest after dark, and I doubt that I have the confidence within me that matches the level of confidence you think I possess. It is exhausting living and looking up to those who deny and will deny your every existence. I can defend myself well, but I struggle with temperance, and I fail at resistance, and sometimes I easily let go of things that I'm still holding on to. I rarely listen to things that I'm told to do, but I'll hang on your every word. I'm an obedient rebel with so many causes and speaking all about change while remembering every single action taken against me, no matter who you were when you performed them. I hate first dates. And last ones are even worse. Do we ever even know when we are experiencing either? I am human. At least I'm supposed to be. Most times, I think I am. I know I am, I'm sure of it. I really don't know anymore. Maybe I'll just guarantee you that it's a possibility. Okay, I wrote this one kind of like, okay, sometimes people say things to me and instead of like arguing back with them, sometimes I just get into this, writing stage. So like, it was a situation where like a Trump supporter who was a Christian at the same time was pushing on me like, oh, well, a vote for Trump is kingdom business. And it kind of bothered me because Like, I believe in God, but I kind of fancy myself a recovering Christian because I really, really, really have some types of, deep-seated issues with some of the theology. So I was just kind of like, instead of arguing, I just write. So I've named this one Introspection. You challenge my relationship with God as if I am just living for fun while simultaneously garnering a vote for a man who doesn't even have one. A vote for that orange turd meant you voted against a black nation. So don't say that you chose the living word when you chose assimilation. The things that will change a person will never be caught on film. So put yourself into some worship because you guys seem plenty overwhelmed. 2020 has brought out the worst in us, and friendships are very far and few. Heart-wrenching knowing that one would vote against justice and sit next to you in a pew. Listen, the revolution still won't be televised despite the internet's age, and so I will continue to pray and be wise, avoiding all demons by burning my sage. And if you call me a witch, that means my writings are spells and I'm compiling them and reciting them so I can see you do well. Chanting, I hear the sound of the abundance of rain, I hear the sound of victory, and after months and months of working on that Biden campaign, the majority of Pennsylvania, well, they voted with me. Thank you, African angels. Ashe.
Well, that's the end, folks. Fantastic night. The energy was so good. Every week, this is the thing that kind of gives me the energy to kind of keep going through the next week. So I'm so happy to be able to listen to these poets again. Really great tonight. So thank you all. We'll be here again next week, of course. Also, just as another reminder, the Fall Poetry Symposium at the Erie County Public Library will be happening on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. You can get there. You can register on our events page, or you can show up day of just on our Facebook page. So again, thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Chuck Joy, and tonight it's my privilege to have a chance to interview Patric Nuttall, who I've met in the context of partnering with the Erie County Public Library in pursuit of poetry and poetry activities. Pat, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, Chuck. How are you doing today?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to learning more about you.
Well, I'm glad.
So, could you just talk a little bit about sort of you and poetry and how it started and where it's taken you?
Yeah. So I started writing poetry in middle school, kind of. My teacher asked us to write some poems. I didn't want to, so I wrote a bunch of poems sort of mocking the concept of writing poetry for class. She gave me a really high grade and was like, "You're really great at poetry." And I think she just did it to like spite me. And then like I like walked away from that thinking, I am good at poetry. And then so like I wrote here and there until high school, and then I got like serious about it. And then I went through college and I got a BFA, and then I got an MFA. Well, I got a double major in creative writing and philosophy. So I've been in it for a long time at this point.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's just get a little more detail. Let's go back a little bit. Can you kind of set the stage for that middle school? Where were you?
Yeah, so I was in northern Michigan in a town called St. Helen. Well, the school's in Roscommon, but it doesn't matter.
Well, it doesn't matter because I've not heard of either one. Where is that in northern Michigan?
So if you look at the map,
Yeah.
if you look at the it's sort of the top middle.
Okay.
So about an hour south of the bridge.
Okay.
It's middle of nowhere. It's a lot of forest and swamp.
Pretty flat?
Very flat, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
We had like 600 kids in our school, but it was from the whole county, basically. Everybody from the whole county went there.
Were you born there?
So I was born in West Branch, which was just about half hour away from there.
Okay.
But I actually grew up in Colorado for the first like 10 years of my life, and then moved back to Michigan. So
This was related to your family, I presume.
yes,
You
yeah.
wanna talk about that just real quick?
Yeah, my dad, so my mom is originally from Colorado, and my dad's from Michigan, but when he was growing up, there were no jobs in Michigan. because that's just how it goes there. So he moved to Colorado with his family, and he got a job, and then they met there. And my dad convinced my mom to move to Colorado. They lived, or back to Michigan. They lived there for a little bit. 2 weeks after I was born, we moved back to Colorado. And then my dad got a job back in Michigan, so it was a lot of back and forth.
Which part of Colorado? I actually know Colorado better than Michigan.
Yeah, so we lived in Longmont.
Okay, that's sort of kind of central west a little bit, or am I way off?
So it's like basically vaguely in between Boulder and Denver.
Oh, I'm way off.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sort of Front Range?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay, great.
Yeah.
And what's your birth order? Yeah.
So I am the second of four.
Okay.
I have an older sister named Sharon, and then I have, then it goes me, and then a younger sister named Rosemary, and then my brother named Jeffrey.
Nice. And you ended up in middle school in northern Michigan.
Yep.
Mocking poetry and somehow becoming a star for it.
I don't know about a star.
You didn't deserve.
Yeah. It was definitely like leaving that class, I was not expecting to keep writing, but it just sort of kept happening. And then in high school, I won like like a lot of like younger poets, I won a prize, and I thought like, this is.
What kind of prize?
It was just like I don't really even know. My teacher was like, here's this anthology. I'll take some people and then we'll send it out, and then you can get published in it.
Nice.
And then I won like a local, like the high school itself was just doing like a poetry prize, and
Nice.
I got second in that.
What was the name of that high school?
Garish Higgins Public School District, or public high school is the district.
So then you decided to pursue that in college.
Yeah, I am.
Good thinking. That sounds like that was a strength already.
Yeah, it was something I loved. I actually had always expected to go to library science and become a librarian. And I was like, well, for the master's degree for that, it doesn't really matter what you get your bachelor's degree in. So I loved writing, and so I really pursued that.
So what brought library science? Just love of the word and books, or
Yeah,
what? Did
and
you know anybody who did that, or
Well, I worked in the library for 2 years in high school.
really?
And
Public
then,
library?
Yep. Oh, yeah, the public library was the school library. It was combined.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was very small. So the county, like the school and the county had one location for the library.
No kidding.
Yep. So I did that for a couple of years, and that was my plan. And then so I was like, well, for my bachelor's degree, I can just do what I want. And I went English with a creative writing focus, and then I went philosophy with an ethics focus, and then I went to library school, and then
Exciting.
promptly
Very
dropped
abstract,
out.
Too. How'd that philosophy work out?
I will say that I was not built for being a philosophy major long term. Like, it was great. I learned a lot. I really developed my like thought process, but I wasn't quite there. I don't think, like, trying to read, like, I don't know, Nietzsche and trying to like really process it at like a high level. Like, I could do it to an extent, but there's no way I was going to pursue it.
Yeah.
And I tried to focus mostly on political philosophy, which I could mostly get like ethics and political philosophy. And I could get like the big picture stuff, but you know, when you dig in really deep, it gets very abstract.
Now, how about the writing part? In college.
Yeah, so in college,
English, did you say?
yeah, it was English with a creative writing focus.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I went to community college for a couple of years, and it was one of the only community colleges that had an associates in fine arts, at least in the state of Michigan, for creative writing. So I did that, and I worked on the literary journal that we had at the community college. And then when I went to Western Michigan University, I was an intern for Third Coast, which is a international, like, known literary journal. And I did that for a while, and I just got into the program with like Nancy Eimers and really tried to like dig in deep with that. And it was pretty good. I felt it a little stifling at times, but I loved it. I loved being in school and being able to like talk with people about poetry and stuff all the time.
Then what happened?
Then I went to library school. I was there for less than a semester. I dropped out because my life was falling apart. And then,
It happens so often.
yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's right, a lot of times right around then, too.
Yeah.
We don't have to go into that right now.
Oh, no, yeah.
Where did the writing go? What happened next?
So I just kept writing, and I moved back to Kalamazoo, lived on my friend's couch for a while, met my now wife, and I was actually originally going to go overseas to the Czech Republic to teach English. But I was like, well, I just met this girl who I like, and I feel like there's something real here. And moving across, to the Czech Republic to like teach English, potentially to like some businessman that doesn't care about it, seemed to like something I wanted to do, but like things were getting brighter in my life.
Had you been to Europe before that?
No.
Yeah.
I was just winging it. And then so I eventually applied to a bunch of MFAs because I was like, well, I'm good at writing. I've always known I'd probably be a pretty good teacher. And at that time, I still didn't think I wanted to go back to the library world.
Yeah.
So then I went to West Virginia University.
West Virginia University in Morgantown.
Yep, Morgantown.
For an MFA.
Yep.
Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I loved it. There's a lot of debate in the writing community about the value of MFAs, about whether you should pursue one or shouldn't. That whole conversation aside, I think there's valid points to those. I really enjoyed it. I moved there 2010, I think, and my roommate moved with me. He ended up going to law school there, and I ended up going to the MFA program.
Did you live near campus?
I was pretty close to campus.
Yeah.
I was next to where the stadium is. So
The new stadium?
yeah, so I would take the PRT downtown and walk sometimes.
Nice.
Back when I was more in shape, although the hills in that town killed me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very hilly.
Yeah,
It's in the actual valley of the Monongahela River, huh?
yeah, it's gorgeous there.
Yeah.
It would be, that was always the best part about taking the PRT is it would go along the river.
Yeah.
And so you're going in, when you're going downtown, you would just see it the whole way. And it was really great.
For those of you who don't know what the PRT is, you'll have to look it up. Back to you, Patrick. So I know we don't have an immense amount of time, so we'll have to just congratulate you for achieving your MFA.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was
Terrific.
5 or 6 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know.
What happened?
Then my wife got a job as a librarian in Iowa. Well, I moved to Pittsburgh because that's where she was living for a bit. We moved to Iowa because she got a job there.
Which part?
Dubuque, so in the northeast corner of Iowa.
City.
Yeah, Dubuque City. So, and that was an interesting time. It was interesting living right on the Mississippi. I'd gone from living right on the Monongahela, and then so that was we were there for about 2.5 years. There were some challenges at workplace challenges, so we kind of figured it'd be worth it to get out while we could. And we made our way to Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, how'd that happen?
So my wife, she has family who is from Erie. Her mom actually is from Erie, and a bunch of her family lives here. And we lived in Michigan briefly with her family while we were looking for jobs. And the job, when you're a librarian, you just kind of look for jobs everywhere. And a job popped up for Erie, Pennsylvania, and it kind of felt, it was a very nice coincidence. So she applied for it and she got it. So for her, it kind of felt like moving home because she used to spend a whole bunch of time here growing up. And for me, I was like, well, add another city to the list. I've lived a lot of places, so I figured it'd be a pretty cool place to be in.
And what have you found here in Erie?
So I really like Erie. It's a nice site. It's having lived in Detroit and Pittsburgh, living in big cities. It's nice to be a step lower. There's still a bunch to do. There's still pretty good food, very good food. There's some good food in this town. And I found one of the best parts about being in Erie that I didn't really know until I started working at the library and getting involved with the poetry scene is that Erie has a surprisingly poetic community for a place that isn't tied to an MFA program. Yeah. Like there's a whole slew of poets here who just are in it for the love of the game. They're not in it for the accolades. They're not like in a program already, just sort of interacting because that's like part of the deal. That's been like a really interesting, I guess, thing to learn about, because I've mostly lived in college towns or in like big cities, and there's almost always an MFA or something tied into it. So, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you expect if there's an MFA around that there'll be a huge poetry community. Whereas here, there are still universities that have like strong poetry departments or like creative writing and poetry stuff going on, but there's a lot more like grassroots poetry. That's really cool.
Well, I want to ask just a couple of things about poetry. How about, who do you like?
I like a lot of people. So like always the top of my lists are like Larry Levis, James Wright, and Elizabeth Bishop. Those are like my three of all time. Lately, the person I've been reading a lot is Ada Limon, and she's a fantastic poet, Latin American. I can't remember the name of her newest book, but a bunch of her poetry's up on the Poetry Foundation if you have a chance, and it's just, the imagery is fantastic, and there's like a great rhythm to her language that's like very subtle.
Is it translated?
She's English speaking, so it's just all in English, but yeah, 'cause she's Latin.
Anybody you met along the way that maybe other people wouldn't have heard of, but don't have enough recognition, or would be just considered poets that you know? Or?
Yeah, so my friend, Jessica Guzman, Alderson, she got married. She's an amazing poet, originally from Florida. We went and we got our MFA together. And she's actually working in Pittsburgh, or in Philadelphia right now. She got a job out there. But she just had her first book come out in the last like 6 months. For the life of me, can't remember the name. Wow. But Jessica Guzman, her stuff is amazing. She works a lot with the strange and like the weird, and like how that intersects with like her life, but also with like the community she's involved in, and it's just some fantastic poetry.
Sure. Anybody else come to mind like that?
So I've kind of lost I'm really good at losing contact with people.
Okay, well I got two other questions.
Okay.
The next one is, Patrick, I think your imagination as revealed in your poetry is quite something. Could you talk about that a little bit?
So yeah, my imagination in my poetry. So it's hard to talk about because like, I think where a lot of my philosophy on writing comes from, of course, is my mentors and my teachers along the way. One of my most important mentors is like Jerry LaFemina, a New York poet who is in Frostburg, Maryland right now. And
yeah, Jerry LaFemina.
Yeah,
okay.
And he like had a lot of. He's actually who introduced me to Larry Levis, and like with Larry Levis, both him and Jerry's poetry can be very meditative. Like can wander in moments a lot to try to like explore and discover where the poem is going. So I try to take that philosophy into my poetry, and I let it kind of. I'll like find the thing I'm talking about, and I'll let it like associate with other stuff, and I try not to rein it in too much.
You like to get away from the limits of reality and sort of create.
Yeah, I think reality is a lot more expansive than we interact with every day. So I think by like letting myself like not necessarily free associate, but letting myself wander from the concrete to a little bit more abstract or sort of surreal stuff. Like
well, it's pretty evident, and that's great. I respect that. That's terrific. How about, you read 2 poems earlier this evening at Poetry Live. Do you have any comments about them or what they might illustrate?
Yeah, so I read July 4th, which I wrote. That was one of my grad school poems that I still like keep around because I think it still works pretty well. And then a poem that I just wrote on the 7th, which was only like 4 days ago. Yeah. So usually I don't read poems like that I've written that close. I usually let it marinate a little bit, but I had a strong feeling about that. And for some reason, I have a lot of poems about the 4th of July, and I don't know why. It's just...
You better think about that one.
Yeah, it's something I think, because it's so associated with the senses, there's the fireworks, there's, you're outside, you're smelling all of the food at the barbecue, there's like the violence of the explosions and the sounds. There's, of course, the connection with America and the revolution. There's patriotism. There's all these things going on. So I think I'm always, between it being like symbolically important and it being like sensorily important, I'm always drawn to it. So I think that's where that poem came from. I used to take the bus everywhere because I don't drive. And I would often take the bus throughout the Midwest. When I was in West Virginia, I'd travel from West Virginia to northern Michigan by bus. And then even before that, I would travel Chicago and everywhere else. And so one time I was on the bus for 4th of July, and I was just like, well, this is a really interesting crew that's here, and I was just thinking about it. And the other poem was just a really interesting headline that I had read, and I thought, like, how could I play with that language, which was already kind of bizarre.
Just say it because maybe people didn't see the show.
I don't actually...
Don't worry about it then.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you just remembered it.
I have
There it is.
have it right in my pocket. Yeah, so the headline was Giant Eagle Seen in the Streets of Philadelphia Because America.
Yeah.
And it was just such a weird phrase, and it was obvious that it was like a headline with like a picture and like a caption, so it wasn't like an actual full article, but it was just a very weird phrase. And I think the picture was of like a gigantic paper mache eagle. But I just thought like it just was really interesting, so I just thought like I need to play with that language. And I just tried to like play with that sound and the images that it came through. And I've been thinking a little bit about like Greek myth lately, so then I was like, Prometheus getting his liver eaten out. I was like, well, that's like I could bring that into it. Like I was just like associating from the image and the sound to that, and yeah. So it was definitely a very fun poem to write.
Yeah, cool. Do you consider yourself prolific?
No.
No.
I try to be, but I will say that usually I write a couple good poems a month. I will say for the last 3 months, I haven't, the first poem I wrote actually was the one I read today since early in the pandemic. Yeah. And then I kind of like froze for a while because I think politics and
There's
pandemic.
a lot that can distract from the state of being able to.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And as somebody that's taught creative writing and somebody who's given a lot of advice to people about writing, my answer would be, to myself would be, oh, you just need to sit down and write. But at the same time, like there's 3 months where I basically didn't write anything, despite knowing I should. But since the election, I've written 3 poems, so which is for me pretty good. So I think now that things have kind of not, there's still stuff going on,
right.
but I think that's been a little bit of a breath of fresh air and allowed me to get back to it.
I'm a little sensitive to about how much time we have.
Oh, yeah.
So what else would you like to tell us before we wrap?
Really, I just want to thank you for being so involved. I mean, you're the Poet Laureate, so of course you're involved, but like for like getting in contact with Blaine and me and getting Poetry Live set up. I want to thank everybody for coming to Poetry Live. It's been wildly successful compared to my fears, because I'm a naturally fearful person, I think. So like, I just want to thank everybody for coming. I want to say that I'm just so happy poetry is, like, Erie's so involved in poetry, and I just want to keep on keeping on. I want to keep us going no matter what happens, even if it takes a different form. I'm just happy to know that there's people out there that want to talk about poetry, and that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Great, Patrick. Well, let me just thank you as a person with my own story of partnership with this library, the Erie County Public Library, and how it has blossomed and flourished over the years. Your presence has added to it and brought us here, so that's just great. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to get to know you this way.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.